Hello, everybody, and we're live again. Hope you're having a great day. It's 4 o'clock p.m. Mountain Time. I don't know where you are, but I'd love to know where you are. So, if you're watching this either now or in the replay, I'd love it if you put in the chat where you're watching from. It's always fun to see how international we get on these kinds of things. Just the other week, I was speaking in front of a group and it went literally international. I can't remember how many countries, but we had a lot of people watching and it was awesome. So I love hearing that wherever you are coming from and watching from. So let me get my screen shared here so you can see the fun pictures and, text here. All right, you should be seeing that. And here we go. So welcome. Oh, let's go back. Welcome to the webinar on healing your emotions during challenging times. Here you will learn how to remove limiting beliefs, get unstuck, gain clarity, and get motivated now. Who doesn't want that, especially during these troubled times? You are in the right place. If you feel negative energy all around you that's affecting your emotions, if you feel stuck or unhappy with life, if you feel unfocused, unmotivated, and not sure what steps to take now, if you feel angry, frustrated, and uncertain, alone and lost, if you feel any of these, you are in the right place. You will learn how to heal your emotions. And reality check, you know what? Everybody is going through these emotions right now. That's the good news. We don't have to be alone in how we feel. And you can learn how to control what goes on inside of you, no matter what's happening around you. And I'm going to show you how. But first, you need to get rid of all distractions. For the next 30 minutes or so, you're going to learn some things that aren't often talked about and in ways that they're not often talked about. Some things that are going to help you heal your emotions. Very important, especially during these times. So it's important that you get rid of your distractions. If you're eating, put it to the side, put the social media to the side. They'll still be there, I promise. Or if you're at work and you got 30 minutes, then hey, this will be worth it. So get rid of those distractions and we'll jump right in. And I promise you a great bonus Q&A session at the end. If you stick around to the end, you'll get the opportunity to ask me any question that you'd like, and I can help you with that. Also, for those who hang out with me till the end, if you get, you will get a special free bonus gift. How's that? Strategy for today's agenda. You will understand your emotions during uncertainty. You'll eliminate limiting beliefs that keep you stuck. You'll learn techniques to shift your mindset, and you'll know action steps to take to improve your life now. Now, if you're watching this and you are ready for all of this to happen to you right now, put a yeah in the chat or raise your hand, whatever, get excited, right? This is going to be good. First, you got to know a little bit about me. Why in the world am I qualified to teach you about this, right? We got to know I wasn't always happy and satisfied with my life either. Now, I know that for most people say, Ben, you have a picture perfect life. You have everything put together. You really have nothing to worry about. So why in the world would you be talking about emotions? Well, let's first understand what my picture perfect life looked like. First of all, I was an executive at an international company with nearly 2,000 employees, all under the age of 30. All right. So yeah, I had climbed the corporate ladder. I had gotten my education, my bachelor's, my master's, and I was really excelling in that area. Now, if you're paying attention to this picture, you might notice that it doesn't look anything like me. And if that's what you're thinking, then you'd be correct. That is not me, but I just didn't take a whole lot of pictures of me back then. So I found a good one online. There you go. I did have the brand new car. I did have the nice house. I did have a lot of these things that looked like I had the picture perfect life. I get that. But I suffered in silence. I was successful, but not happy. I was important, but not whole. I was popular, but not vulnerable. So I turned to coping mechanisms. I said, look, if I have this picture perfect life and yet I feel this way, in other words, I feel in ways that I don't want to, I turned to things to try to make me feel better. My first was shield of success. You'll learn a little bit about why this is the case, but I turned to my shield of success because I said, hey, being successful and having people say, Ben, you're amazing, you're talented, you're a leader, you can do all sorts of things, that was a much better feeling than having them know that I was suffering in silence or that I was struggling with some internal emotions. See how that was a little bit better, right? And that's why I turned to that coping mechanism. The second thing I turned to was pornography, unfortunately. I had started to get so tired of how I was feeling, and all of a sudden I discovered this. Now, here's the thing. Of course, logically, we know that it doesn't make sense to turn to something like this, but we're not talking about a logical situation right here. We're talking about an emotional one. If I'm suffering in silence, dealing with emotions that I don't know how to resolve, then my brain naturally turns to something in an attempt to feel better. That happened to be pornography for me. It gave me the feelings of connection and love and excitement and everything else that I was longing for. Now, of course, I know that this isn't a long-term solution, but my brain thought it was working because it was giving me that relief, even though it was temporary. I also turned to isolation. With all of this, shield of success, turning to these coping mechanisms, I didn't know where to turn, and I didn't think I could turn to anybody. I'm a leader. I'm supposed to live up to this image of picture perfect, this guy who can figure out anything, who's talented. I can't let anybody know that I'm struggling. So the more I struggled, the less I felt I could turn to anybody, and I became more and more isolated. Does this mean I didn't go out and hang out with people? Does it mean I just stayed in my room all the time? No. But it does mean I became less and less vulnerable. I opened up less to people. So even if I was surrounded by a group of friends and family who loved me and I loved them, it would be superficial conversations, superficial relationships, because I was isolating. Other things that didn't work, I tried to fix it by myself. I still spent time saying, look, I've been able to figure this out. It'll just work itself out by my own efforts. I tried to ignore my pain. I said, it's got to go away. I'm a man. I can't feel this way anyway. So what's the big deal? So with all of that, how in the world did I overcome it? Well, there's a little bit more to the story. Let me go back to this so we're not blinded by that white light, huh? There's a little bit more to this story and why I was suffering in silence and the depth of why I turned to what I did. As I was going through all of this, there came a point where my behaviors, my coping mechanisms, the pornography, the everything else, hurt a relationship I was in. So much so that I decided I had to change. This had to stop. I couldn't go on like this anymore. I had to do whatever was necessary to get it out of my life. So that night I reached out to my parents and I just said, I need help. I need help. Thankfully, they listened. They didn't judge. And together, I was able to find a group that, was full of other men who were struggling with pornography. And these other men looked like they had fantastic lives and that they were fantastic men. And so I'm thinking, well, shoot, if they seem to just have a great life, let's call them picture perfect, and yet they're struggling with this, wow. I all of a sudden feel like I'm not alone. And a massive weight was lifted off my shoulders. So helpful. That was a big thing that happened to me there. Also, as I looked around the room and I thought, okay, if we're all struggling with this similar thing, what do we have in common? Why would we turn to this when we know it doesn't help, when we know the pain that it can cause? And that's where I started to realize that it's coming from unresolved emotions. The unresolved emotions are causing us to turn to this behavior. And as I thought through all of this, and I knew that I had to make the change, I had to do whatever was necessary to get rid of this, I decided to work with a therapist because, I wanted to get it all out, do whatever was necessary. And as I was working with this therapist and thinking about this idea of, man, is it these emotions, unresolved emotions that are making me turn to this? I wondered, do I have an unresolved emotion? And if so, where did it come from? So as I thought, I remembered something that happened when I was a 9 or 10-year-old boy. I was in elementary school and we had just finished a game of dodgeball. Now I had done very well at that game and my friends were starting to notice that I was good at sports and I started to notice that my friends cared that I was good at sports. See how this works? Here I was a 9 or 10-year-old boy discovering that I had these talents and starting to build an identity based on what other people thought about me, right? So as we were leaving this dodgeball game, my friends were laughing hysterically about something. So of course I wanted to be involved, and I turned to them and I said, "Hey guys, what's so funny?" And they told me to raise my arms. I'm like, "What?" But I did. I raised my arms, and they laughed even harder. I was confused. But I looked down and I realized that I had extremely sweaty armpits. And you might think, bro, what's the big deal? You just finished a game of dodgeball. Of course you'd be sweaty. But here I was, a 9 or 10-year-old boy, not fully understanding how the body works. And it must have been a whole lot worse than anybody else, because otherwise, why would my friends laugh at me? Now, again, you might think, okay, sad story, but that was like, what, 20 years ago at least? Why is it still affecting you, or it shouldn't affect you? All right. Well, this was such an emotionally scarring event for me. Why? Because in the moment, I experienced some scary emotions that I didn't know what to do with. I experienced the humiliation, the embarrassment, the fear, the shame. When my friends said things like, "Ew, that's gross. Ew, that's disgusting," my brain heard, "You are gross. You are disgusting. Therefore, there must be something wrong with me." So that turned from an event into a definition. And that carried with me for a long time. But here's something else that was awesome. 20 years later, as I was working with my therapist and working through these things, I discovered that I had what's called hyperhidrosis. It's excessive sweating in either the hands, the feet, or the underarms. And 5% of the world have it. I was like, no way. I was sure I was the only one who had this. So just knowing again that I wasn't alone had a huge weight lifted off my shoulders. Wow. So I thought through this, and I was like, okay, I need to tell my therapist. I hadn't told anybody. Not even my mom knew how much this affected me. But I decided to open up to somebody to get it all out. So I spoke to my therapist, and like any good therapist, after hearing my story, he said, "Thank you for telling me." I was like, "What? You're not going to laugh at me or make me feel embarrassed like I did, like I experienced 20 years ago?" So my brain realized for the first time that maybe the reaction that happened 20 years ago didn't have to repeat itself. It didn't have to be a definition. Then my therapist did something with me that was extremely helpful. He helped me reprogram my brain and rewrite my memories. He said, "I want you to imagine going back to your 9 or 10-year-old self right after this event happened. And I want you to take him to a safe place. I want you to tell him, you just went through something very difficult. And you have every right to feel the way that you do. But I want you to know that it is over, that you are loved, and that you're going to do some amazing things in life." Now, when I told myself this, I said, baloney. I can't lie to myself. I know I don't feel loved. I can't lie and say that I do. You say I'm going to do some amazing things, but I just don't feel like that's true. How can I be dishonest with myself? So yeah, I had this internal turmoil, a bit of fear. But as my therapist helped me repeat this a number of times, I was able to experience the emotions that I had hidden for years. I had pushed them to the back of my mind and said, I will never feel that way again. But in this safe environment, when I finally opened up, I experienced those. And I was able to turn what was once a ghost that haunted me into an ancestor that I can learn from. Now that I've done all this, I know how to overcome those things, and I can help others. Again, how I overcame mine, I decided I had to change, and I said, no more excuses. I reached out for help. I invested in people who would empower me. Yes, it cost me money to talk to the therapist, to hire coaches, to do what was necessary. It was well worth it. I implemented a system that helped me change my life. And I'm not just saying that. I mean, I'm totally different. And this was the quote I just mentioned. So the new me, noticeably happier. Yeah, people say it all the time. Ben, wow, I've known you for years and there's a big difference. I have deeper relationships. I told you before about the superficial relationships. I just felt so closed off and didn't feel like I could relate with anybody. But now I know that since we're not alone in how we feel in a lot of things, We can relate and we should relate. We can by opening up and healing our emotions. I'm much more confident in my future. I used to say, well, what's the big deal? Or what's the use thinking about my future? Because life sucks anyway, right? And this is going to be me for the rest of my life. There's no way out. But now I am confident in my future because I know how to heal my emotions. I do heal my emotions, and I know that I can in the future. Now I help others get unstuck, refocused, and back on track. You hold the key to change inside of you, and I can help you unlock it. If you are ready for that, raise your hand, say yeah. Very good. Here we go. Moving on. Let's see if I can get my slide to work. Perfect. So learn about your struggle and emotions. I tried ignoring my situation forever, just saying, it's part of life, it'll pass, or it'll never pass, and it's fine. I'll just deal with it. But as you learn about your struggle and you learn to struggle well, and you learn about your emotions, then you can heal those emotions, even during these times of uncertainty. Now, emotions of today. I'm going to put up here on the slide a list of emotions. But as you're watching this, I want you to look at the list and say, okay, yeah, these apply to me, these apply to me. Or if I missed any, I want you to put those in the chat. What are some emotions that I may have missed that you or somebody you know is feeling today? Are you feeling doubtful, scared, anxious, unfocused, out of control, angry, frustrated, worried, depressed, sad, annoyed? Again, if you can relate with anything on the list, awesome. If I missed something on the list, go ahead and put it in the chat box. What emotion are you experiencing today? And if it's more than one, that's okay. This is just important for us to admit what we're feeling. And as we see and understand that other people are feeling, hey, guess what? The same emotion as we are. Wow. We realize that we're not alone. Guess what? That weight is gone. This can work for everybody. Problems stuck emotions cause. If you are experiencing those emotions, if you are experiencing those emotions and you don't do anything about them and you try to pretend they don't exist like normal, what problems can come because of that? Here's another list. And if I miss something, put it in the chat. Binge watching, eating, video games, YouTube, suicide. Why is suicide on the list? Because when people have so much unresolved emotions and emotional pain, their brain thinks the only way out of that is suicide. Pornography, drugs and alcohol, other addictive behavior, violence, etc. If there's anything I missed, put it in the chat. Binge eating, whatever the behavior is that we're turning to simply to be distracted from the way that we feel. That's not going to solve the ultimate issue. And it'll continue if we don't resolve it. A little word about the brain. So there are a number of parts about the brain, but I'm only going to talk about the rational and the emotional, or the logical and the emotional. If you think about any of those behaviors we just discussed, none of them logically make sense to solve an emotional problem. Why would eating food solve how we feel? It just doesn't make any sense. Why would binge watching or turning to an addictive substance solve our boredom, our loneliness, something like that? This doesn't logically make sense, right? That's because we're not dealing with logical situations. We're dealing with emotional situations and decisions. So instead of turning to those behaviors, we need to resolve and heal those emotions. So here I'm going to go through a little list of some emotions specifically. And I want you to think to yourself and put in the chat, what does this emotion look like? What does this emotion feel like? To you or to somebody you know? How it's affected you or them? What does depression look like to you? What does it feel like? Is it like it is in the picture? Is it sad? Is it dejected? Is it apathetic? Is it closed off? Is it, I want nothing to do with the world? What is it? I'm not going to give you all the answers. I'm just asking you to think about it and say, maybe I've never paused to think about what depression is. Maybe I've just used it because it's a popular term. Maybe it's, I don't know, but okay. Maybe I seriously have it and maybe I understand a lot about it. Okay. What is it to you? What does it look like? What does it feel like? Anxiety and fear, what does that look like? What does that feel like in you, in others? Is it like the picture? You're going to pull your hair out. Can you function? Do you lose control? What is it? Anger and frustration. What does that look like? What does that feel like? Again, I'm training your logical brain here. What is it? Recognize it. Sadness. Is sadness the same as depression? Is it different? What does it look like? What does it feel like? Loneliness. Boy, in this time of social distancing, there's a lot of loneliness, I'm telling you. But again, the interesting thing is all of us who are lonely, we don't like to admit it. And yet we're all feeling lonely. So what does it feel like? What does it look like? We mentioned this a little bit before, but the rational and emotional brain. Why do we even have the emotional brain? Okay, wouldn't it be just so much easier if we could take that little part out? So annoying, right? It causes us to make terrible decisions. It messes up the decisions that we're trying to make. It's just so stressful that we try to turn it off anyway, so why can't we just remove it? Well, here are a couple reasons why we have the emotional brain. Connection. Have you ever tried talking to somebody who you never know how they're feeling? They seem closed off, or they always have only one emotion. How connected do you feel to that person? Probably not a whole lot. Survival. Yeah, fear is part of the emotional brain, and fear is a protective mechanism, right? It teaches us we either fight, we freeze, or we run away. Okay, that's an important part of the emotional brain. It also brings life. Man, think about it. No emotion, no life. Lots of emotion, even though it's a little stressful, maybe confusing, hard to deal with, that brings life. So validate your emotions. Emotions can get stuck. If we don't do anything with those emotions, then they can literally get stuck in our body. Emotions are energy in motion. And if they don't move, they're going to get stuck. They could cause a physical ailment. Sometimes when you're stressed or having an emotion that you haven't dealt with and you've been feeling for a long time, you can recognize where you feel that in your body and say, how does that make sense? It's just an emotion. Well, that's the thing. It can really get stuck, physically get stuck. Emotions can be suppressed, like I did as a child. I tried to push it to the back of my brain and say, I will never feel that way again. And guess how well that worked? Sure didn't. So emotions need to be processed. Once they do, this face here of the smile is almost a natural reaction because our natural state is to be that happy and connected person. When we process all of the other emotions, it doesn't mean they're bad or that we never want to feel that way, but then we can get back to how we want to be. Some final questions for you. I want you to put these in the chat, even though they're super simple answers, I know. Does being rich equal happiness? Is that the solution? Can we just skip by everything that I've said? We don't need to heal our emotions. I just need to be rich. Think that's going to solve everything? How about time? I don't need to heal my emotions. I just need more time. Time will solve everything. Time certainly helps. That's definitely true. But is time the ultimate answer? My message is that you have more power than you realize. And you can heal your emotions. So allow me to help you heal your emotions now during these uncertain times. I'm excited to offer this to you. This is a big deal. These are valued at $500 each, and I'm giving away 3 of them. All right, awesome. So what you'll do is if you go to this, when you go to this website here, www.benedenspeaks.com/coaching, and you fill out this form, 3 of you will win a complimentary one-on-one personal guided coaching session with me valued at $500. Now, what'll happen during this call? Well, we'll go through your personal situation. It might be a conversation that you've never had or that you rarely have. How are you really feeling? What do you really want out of life? How can you get there? We'll go through these specifics and give you a game plan on how you can achieve and live the future that you want. Live your best life. All right, how's that sound? So again, this is valued at $500. I'm giving away 3 of them. If you go to this form right here, www.benedenspeaks.com/coaching, here's what it actually looks like. Oops, let's go back. Here's the URL. This is exactly what the page looks like. When you go here and you'll see this form, this is the form that you fill out right here at the bottom. Short form, once you fill that out, you'll be entered to be one of the 3 winners for that free personalized coaching session with me. But even more than that, okay, I want everybody to have a chance to get something very valuable out of this. Everybody who goes and fills out that form will get a copy of my free ebook, 7 Strategies to Help Heal Your Emotions. So one more time, everybody who goes to this link, www.benedenspeaks.com/coaching, will get a copy of that book. And 3 of you will be a lucky winner of the complimentary one-on-one personal guided coaching session with me, where we'll go through your personal situation and help you develop a game plan to not only heal your emotions, but live your best life. All right, now I promised you the Q&A session. So while you're filling out that form, go in there. If you have any questions, put them in the chat. I'd love to answer those for you. I'll give you a few seconds to think and to type. And while you're doing that, I'll answer some of these questions that came in previously. One was, does healing your emotions, here, let me get it here. Does healing your emotions affect your relationships? And so how? Well, absolutely. I mentioned this earlier. My relationships are so much different and better because I've healed my emotions. Previously, I was isolated. I was shut off. In fact, a close friend of mine told me, you keep people at arm's length. You don't let anybody get close to you. And this isn't just physically. It was also physically for sure, but it was more on an emotional level. You just don't let people really get to know you and really connect with you. And I say, yeah, I've never thought about it that way, but that's definitely true. I didn't want anybody to get close enough that they could learn something about me that I wasn't proud of and I didn't necessarily control. But now that I've healed those emotions, I know that what happened doesn't have to define me. I don't have to carry it with me to the future. I can choose the life I live because I'm empowered. Wow, I have these connections. And these relationships are so much more powerful and so much deeper. I realize that we relate in a lot of things. And I see them as fellow human beings instead of, oh my goodness, they're going to judge me and I need to protect myself. So yes, a huge difference healing my emotions has made on my relationships. Any other questions coming in? Another common one is about anger. Here's another thing about emotions. A lot of us try to ignore our emotions or distract ourselves from feeling anything, right? And some of us get upset for feeling the way we do. So this anger and frustration, we get angry. Maybe we don't understand why we're angry. Now we're upset that we're upset. You ever thought about that? That we're upset that we're upset. What in the world? And then it's just a little spiral that gets worse and worse. And that's why we turn to our coping mechanisms to try to stop that spiral. So anger, there's a lot to it. And this is what I teach in my coaching sessions and in my classes, but I'll give you a brief summary here. Anger is a secondary emotion that hides fear many, many times. So if we turn to anger, we got to figure out, why am I turning to anger? Is it possible that I'm afraid of something? If so, once I put an understanding to that, I can then control my behavior. Quick answer, I know, but there's more value in signing up for this complimentary coaching session. I can teach you more about that, huh? All right, you guys are being pretty quiet, but that's okay. Those are my questions to answer so far. So go to that link if you haven't already, www.benedenspeaks.com/coaching. Fill out that form. You'll get the free ebook, and 3 of you will be the lucky winner for this complimentary one-on-one personal guided coaching session with me. Until next time, everybody, thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you later.